You know, when we look at architecture, there's this expectation of like flawless precision. You draw the blueprints, you calculate the load-bearing walls.
Right, the structural engineer tells you exactly, down to the decimal point, how much pressure a support beam can take before it fractures.
Exactly. It's a rigorous mathematical science.
And we find, profound comfort in that predictability.
Oh, absolutely.
We like knowing that if you apply a specific amount of force, you get a specific visible result, cause and effect.
But then you step into the world of sports entertainment. Specifically, you look at a championship season like the one we're seeing right now.
Yeah, and suddenly those blueprints are just completely useless.
They really are. You introduce human ego, sheer desperation, and like environmental chaos, and you are staring at a structural collapse. The math just stops working entirely.
Right, it shifts from an exact science to an arena of just chaotic variables. Predictability is basically the first casualty when a title is on the line.
It really is.
Yeah.
And when you pour over the backstage footage and raw feeds from WWE's Night of Champions in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Which was just massive, by the way.
Massive. Or when you dig into the crucial fallout from SmackDown, Evolve, and AAA Lucha Libre, that breakdown in predictability is just everywhere.
It really is.
So our mission today for this deep dive isn't just to list who walked away with a piece of gold. We want to investigate the underlying mechanics of this championship season. We're looking at how, undeniable destiny, environmental constraints, and desperate endurance shape the victors in this industry.
Because the victors this summer didn't just win matches. They survived a literal gauntlet of psychological and physical extremes.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the concept of crowning royalty at Night of Champions.
Yeah, the King and Queen of the Ring tournaments.
Right. Looking through the transcripts of these final matches, what jumps off the page to me is how fiercely they defied traditional underdog narratives.
You really did. I mean, as an audience, we are so heavily conditioned to expect the scrappy fighter.
Right, the guy with the heart of gold overcoming the towering monster.
Exactly. It is
Yeah.
the classic hero's journey. But Night of Champions delivered a very, very stark reality check about the nature of pure dominance.
It really did. So let's look at the King of the Ring. You have Obafemi going up against a beloved veteran, Jey Uso.
Right.
Now, Jey Uso came into this tournament carrying an incredibly complex, family-driven mission. He's out there doing his signature yeet walk.
The crowd loves it.
Oh, commanding this massive 50-50 split crowd reaction. And he's determined to bring gold back to the bloodline to prove his ultimate worth.
Yeah. In his backstage interviews, he talked about silencing the noise and shocking the world.
And Jey has the resume to back up that kind of talk, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a former world champion.
He is. He has stood across the ring from giants before and found ways to chop them down.
Right.
He viewed Obafemi as a formidable obstacle, sure, but ultimately just another chapter in his redemption story.
But then you look at Obafemi's mindset. This is a man who views himself as literal fate.
What?
He referred to himself on camera as, quote, the mountain that you cannot climb. And when the bell rang, we didn't get the Cinderella story.
Not even close. I mean, the physical disparity was staggering.
Let's talk about the physics of that for a second. Jey hits the Uso splash. He launches his entire body weight from the top turnbuckle.
Which is a maneuver that utilizes gravity and momentum to crush an opponent's ribs.
Exactly. That move ends main events. But Obafemi brushed it off before the referee's hand even hit the mat for a 1 count.
Wait, a 1 count?
Barely a 1 count. It breaks the physics of the sport. Obafemi just demolished him, finishing the match with his fall from grace powerbomb to take the crown.
What's fascinating here is that Obafemi didn't just win. He erased the very possibility of an upset.
Yeah, he really did.
He represents an undeniable, immovable force. When you read his pre-match quotes, he was already looking past Jey Uso.
Oh, calling out heavyweights like Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes before the tournament even concluded.
Right. And we often dismiss that as standard heel arrogance, but it was backed up by absolute physical superiority.
And we saw a very similar dynamic on the women's side. For the Queen of the Ring final, Liv Morgan came into Riyadh riding a wave of massive momentum.
Massive.
She is the women's world champion, and she just dropped a Y2K-inspired pop single called Trouble.
Which is super catchy, by the way.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
She is doing media rounds boasting about millions of YouTube views, channeling Britney Spears, and, like, openly treating the tournament as a pit stop on her way to a SummerSlam matchup with Rhea Ripley.
Liv's confidence bordered on astronomical. She entered the tournament specifically claiming no one on the Raw roster had the courage to challenge her.
Right.
She believed she was the undeniable face of the division, and the crown was just a mere formality to decorate her resume.
But then she steps into the ring with Io Sky. And Io is known as the genius of the sky for a reason.
Absolutely.
Io didn't bring pop star arrogance. She brought mathematical precision. After a grueling sequence, Io executed her over the moonsault.
Where she calculates the exact trajectory needed to land perfectly across her opponent.
Exactly. She hits it, claims the crown, and the moment the referee raises her hand, she points right at Liv Morgan and declares, "I see you at SummerSlam."
It was a chilling counter to Liv's delusions of grandeur.
Oh, completely.
Io won through grit and precision. Owafemi won through sheer kinetic force. They both proved that sometimes raw talent and physical execution just eclipse a great emotional narrative.
You know, fans love a Cinderella story. We love watching someone like Jey Uso run the gauntlet against impossible odds.
We really do.
But isn't it fascinating how wrestling sometimes just ignores the underdog trope to remind us that physics exist?
Yeah?
Obafemi's like a Category 5 hurricane. You can have all the heart and family motivation in the world, but you can't punch a hurricane.
That is a crucial point. It grounds the spectacle in brutal reality.
Right.
It proves that no amount of fan support or emotional motivation can rewrite the laws of physical dominance when you step onto the canvas with a true apex predator.
Yeah.
The math of mass and velocity always wins out.
But here's where it gets really interesting. We've established that Obafemi proves you can't beat pure physics in an open ring. But what happens when you take away the open ring?
Oh, that changes everything.
Right. Does dominance still matter when you change the geometry of the space? How do environmental structures and outside interferences tip those scales of power?
This is where we transition from the immovable object to the concept of confinement and chaos. If you want to study how geometry changes a fighter, you have to look at the steel cage match between Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker.
Oh man, the training footage of Braun Breaker preparing for this match tells the whole story.
It's intense.
He is at Fury Performance down in Woodstock, Georgia, grinding through an intense workout with Big E. Braun is doing dumbbell skull crushers to absolute muscular failure.
Wow.
But what caught my eye is his warm-up. He does a 30-minute routine focused on hip mobility, and then he just sprints, running the ropes at full speed in a hallway before he even walks out to the arena.
He is engineering himself to be a human missile.
Exactly. A human missile.
But that engineering is exactly the problem when you introduce a steel cage.
Right.
Braun's entire offensive arsenal relies on building kinetic energy. He needs distance to reach top speed and explode through his opponent.
Yeah.
Inside the cage, he was robbed of his runway. The cage neutralized his greatest physical asset.
And Seth Rollins, acting as this cerebral assassin in this feud, knew exactly how to weaponize that perimeter. Seth played mind games for weeks leading up to this, specifically trying to dismantle Braun's faction, the Vision.
Right.
Inside the cage, Seth took a beating. He survived getting speared right through a wooden table.
Which looked brutal.
Oh, it was insane. But he used the cage structure itself to survive, barking at Braun to find out who you are before hitting a pedigree and an avalanche stomp to end the match.
Seth adapted to the constraints of his environment. He used the steel as both a physical weapon and a psychological barrier.
Yeah.
It shows that adaptability, not just raw power or speed, is the mark of a true champion.
I have to push back a little on this, though. Seth won cleanly because the cage locked out any outside interference from Braun's faction. But it also locked out Braun's speed. It's like putting a great white shark in a bathtub.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. Does a cage match actually prove who the better athlete is, or does it just force a completely different type of survival?
Well, I would argue it forces a different type of survival, but that is the essence of a championship reign.
Okay, fair.
Seth thrived because he understood the geometry of his confinement better than Braun did. Braun tried to fight a linear, open ring style in a closed box.
That makes total sense. And when you look outside the cage, across the rest of the championship landscape, you see fighters surviving precisely because there was no cage to keep the chaos out.
Right. Outside the steel perimeter, chaos rules everything.
Yeah, if the cage represents confinement, the rest of the card represents the profound vulnerability of the solitary fighter.
Look at Trick Williams defending his United States title against Ricky Saints.
Oh, yeah.
Ricky is out there playing mind games, intentionally trying to get Trick's ally, rapper Lil Yachty, ejected from ringside by the referee.
But Yachty sneaks back in, slides into the ring, and delivers a yacht drop.
Which is his personal spin on the people's elbow, right?
Exactly, right onto Ricky Saints. That outside interference is the sole reason Trick retained his title.
We saw the exact same reliance on outside forces in the Women's United States Championship match. Tiffany Stratton was in deep trouble.
Oh, she was getting double-teamed by Jade Cargill's allies, B-Fab and Mitchin. The mass was totally against her.
But then Charlotte Flair makes a shocking return, attacks Jade, and shifts the momentum entirely, so Tiffany can hit the prettiest moonsault ever and retain.
And I want to emphasize that this faction warfare isn't just an isolated storyline on SmackDown. It is a systemic issue across every brand we researched for this deep dive.
It's everywhere.
SmackDown between LA Knight and Solo Sikoa.
Yes, Solo is trying to recruit LA Knight to ally with his crumbling version of the Bloodline.
But LA Knight flat out refuses. He looks Solo in the eye and says he lives and dies doing things his own way.
Because LA Knight recognizes the trap. In a landscape ruled by outside chaos, relying on alliances leaves you incredibly exposed the moment those forces decide to turn on you.
Exactly.
A faction is a shield until the people holding it decide to use it as a sword against you.
That's a great point. So, what does this all mean? We've seen destiny fulfilled by dominant forces like Obafemi, where physics conquer emotion.
Right.
We've seen strategic environmental victories in the steel cage, where geometry beats speed. And we've seen outside chaos tip the scales for vulnerable champions. But how do we categorize a victory fueled entirely by desperate endurance? Where does systemic disruption fit into this blueprint? That brings us to the undisputed WWE Championship triple threat match.
This match is a fascinating case study because it breaks every rule we just discussed.
It really does. You had the defending champion, Cody Rhodes, who operates like a pure franchise quarterback.
The golden boy who plans 3 moves ahead.
Right. Then you had Gunther, the ring general. Gunther is methodical, terrifying, and approaches his opponents with, like, Terminator-like precision.
And then you drop Sami Zayn into the mix.
The ultimate wild card.
Seriously, Sami wasn't even supposed to be in this title picture. He forced his way into the match after a disastrous stint as a guest referee in a previous bout between Cody and Gunther.
And Cody was furious about it. In a backstage segment, Cody told Sami to his face that he is exhausting.
Yeah, he compared Sami to a mosquito constantly sucking the blood out of him.
Cody even told Sami to keep Kevin Owens' name out of his mouth, noting that at least Kevin stabbed him in the front.
Sami's presence was a complete anomaly, but Sami knew he had been chasing this specific championship for a decade.
For over 20 years in the industry overall.
Right. He brought a frantic, unpolished desperation that neither Cody nor Gunther could map out on a chalkboard.
It visibly rattled them. Gunther, who is usually a machine incapable of emotion, completely lost his cool. During the match, he was powerbombing referees.
Which is insane.
He let his anger override his meticulous strategy. And the climax of the match was pure, unfiltered chaos.
Yeah.
Cody goes for a double crossroads. The move gets broken up, Gunther gets taken out of the equation, and Sami Zayn miraculously rolls through to pin Cody Rhodes.
On his 10th attempt at the world title, Sami Zayn pulls it off.
The post-match visual was just striking. Sami is kneeling in the ring, clutching the championship, crying, and declaring that he doesn't care what happens tomorrow or next week because forever his name will be preceded by the words WWE Champion.
Wow.
I keep trying to conceptualize how this happened. Cody and Gunther are like 2 grandmasters intensely playing chess against each other, and Sami Zayn is the guy who just runs into the room and flips the board.
That's exactly it.
But is Sami's win merely a fluke of the triple threat format, or is there a masterclass in psychological warfare happening here?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is brilliant psychological warfare. Let's expand on your chess metaphor.
Okay.
When 2 grandmasters are hyper-focused on countering each other's 10-step plans, they develop severe tunnel vision. They only see the moves that make logical sense.
Right, the conventional moves.
Exactly. Sami didn't beat their strategy. He exploited their blind spot by introducing chaos they hadn't mapped out.
Oh, I see.
He weaponized his position as the overlooked nuisance. He let their massive egos clash, let them exhaust their heavy artillery on each other, and he simply endured long enough to pick the bones.
So in a world filled with physical giants like Obafemi and strategic masterminds like Seth Rollins, the most dangerous competitor might just be the one who has absolutely nothing to lose and a quarter century of pent-up desperation driving them forward.
Precisely. Sami Zayn proves that endurance can be just as lethal as a power bomb if deployed at the exact right moment.
That brings this entire analysis right back to you, listening to this deep dive.
Yeah, why should you care about the psychology of these squared circle theatrics?
Because the underlying mechanics apply everywhere, far beyond a wrestling ring. You are going to face scenarios where the blueprints fail.
All the time.
Whether you are dealing with a Category 5 hurricane in your own career, a force you simply cannot overpower, or trying to adapt to the constraints of your own steel cage in a restrictive project, there is a distinct strategy required to survive.
Sometimes you have the leverage to dominate your field.
Right.
Sometimes you have to adapt to the geometry of your environment.
And sometimes you feel like the exhausting underdog on your 10th attempt at success, and your only path to victory is to outlast the giants by flipping the board when they aren't looking.
This raises an important question, though, as we look toward the future of this championship season.
Okay, what's that?
We've analyzed dominance, adaptation, and endurance. We've talked about how a solitary fighter is vulnerable without a faction to watch their back. But what happens when the very foundation of your power decides to pack up and walk away?
Oh, you're talking about the bloodline.
Think about the crumbling bloodline dynamics we saw on SmackDown. Tama and Talatonga explicitly confronted Solo Sikoa and told him they are abandoning his obsession.
And as we mentioned, LA Knight looked Solo in the eye and refused to step in to fill that void.
Exactly. Solo Sikoa is now entirely isolated. When the alliances and the fear that built your empire vanish overnight, how do you defend a throne that is left exposed from all sides?
Wow.
It is a structural collapse waiting to happen, and the math says he can't survive it. Something to mull over until our next deep dive.
It really is the ultimate architectural failure. You can draw the perfect blueprints and you can build the strongest walls, but if the people holding up the foundation walk away, the whole building comes crashing down on your head. Thanks for joining us for this special exploration, everyone. We will see you on the next deep dive.